Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, fellow Force enthusiasts. This is Journey Joe Mitchell coming at you from the cozy confines of the TV basement. Today we're diving into episode 6 of the Acolyte's first season titled Teach Corrupt. And boy, do we have a lot to unpack. So after last week's action-packed lightsaber extravaganza, this episode definitely pumps the brakes a bit. But don't worry, there's still plenty of juicy Star Wars goodness to sink our teeth into. Let's start with the main event, Osha and Qimir's little getaway on Not-Ahch-To. Talk about your intense Force-powered couples therapy. Manny Jacinto is really bringing his A-game as Qimir, walking that line between seductive and sinister. And Amandla Stenberg's Osha? You can practically see the conflict playing out on her face as she wrestles with everything she's been taught about the Force. The parallels to Rey and Kylo Ren from the sequel trilogy are pretty obvious, but I think the Acolyte is taking it in an even more interesting direction. Osha trying on Qimir's helmet at the end? Chills, folks. Absolute chills. Are we watching the birth of a new Sith Lord, or is Osha playing a long game? Either way, I'm here for it. Now let's dig a little deeper into this dynamic. Qimir's approach to seducing Osha to the dark side is fascinating. He's not just offering power, he's offering a whole new perspective on the Force. His argument that the Jedi's way isn't the only way to access the Force is pretty compelling. And when you think about it, we've seen non-evil Force users outside the Jedi Order before, like the Night Sisters of Dathomir. Are the Jedi really as all-knowing as they claim to be? I also love the revelation about Qimir's helmet acting as a sensory deprivation device. It's such a cool concept. The idea that by cutting off your other senses, you can fully immerse yourself in the Force. It's a great contrast to the Jedi approach of being aware of your surroundings. And that final scene with Osha putting on the helmet? The Darth Vader vibes were strong, and I'm both excited and terrified to see where this leads. Now let's talk about May's undercover shenanigans on Saul's ship. I've got to be honest, this part of the episode felt a little frustrating. The constant almost reveals and near misses started to wear thin after a while. And don't even get me started on that slapstick moment with Basil grabbing May's leg. It felt a bit out of place in what's otherwise been a pretty serious show. That being said, I do appreciate the tension these scenes are building. Lee Jung-jae is doing some great work as Sol, especially in those moments where his cool Jedi demeanor slips. That moment when he punches the console out of frustration, it's a great reminder that even Jedi Masters are still human, or whatever species Sol is. I'm also intrigued by the idea that May might be in over her head here. She's been so confident up to this point, but now we're seeing cracks in her facade. The fact that she didn't immediately run after Basil when he discovered her secret suggests she might be losing her edge, or is this all part of some larger plan we're not privy to yet? Meanwhile, we've got Vernestra and the Jedi trying to piece together what happened to Saul's team. This storyline also felt a bit stretched out, but I'm intrigued by the idea that Saul might be set up as the fall guy for everything that's gone down. It could explain why the Jedi in the prequel era are so clueless about the Sith. Speaking of Vernestra, did anyone else catch that moment when she used her lightwhip? It's such a cool and unique weapon, and I'm hoping we get to see more of it in action soon. Also, the fact that we see Qimir has a scar that looks like it could have been made by a whip. Well, let's just say I don't think that's a coincidence. One thing that's really standing out to me as we near the end of the season is how the Acolyte is challenging our preconceptions about the Force and the Jedi Order. We're getting to see the Jedi at the height of their power, but also at the height of their complacency. Their inability to sense the darkness growing right under their noses is both frustrating and tragic, especially knowing what's coming in the prequels. Overall, this episode was definitely more of a slow burn compared to last week's fireworks. But sometimes you need those quieter moments to set up the big payoffs. And with only 2 episodes left, you know things are about to kick into high gear. I'm particularly excited to see how they're going to wrap up all these storylines. Will we finally learn what really happened on Brendok? Will Osha fully embrace the dark side? And what's the deal with Qimir's power of 2 idea? Is he trying to create a Force dyad like we saw with Rey and Kylo in the sequels? One last thing I want to mention. The visuals in this episode were stunning. Those shots of Not-Ahch-To were gorgeous, especially the scenes with Osha discovering her new environment. And those little creatures that froze when Osha walked by? Adorable and hilarious. It's those little touches that really make the Star Wars universe feel alive.